Hi, so I'm back. This is my second check-in as part of the regenerative leadership course set up through Holistic Management Canada. And this email that came out this week really got me thinking, and I just had to jump up after I read through this, put some thought together, and had to get something put together. We'll see if my cows cooperate. Hopefully there's not too much background noise, but I just like talking about these things out here on the pasture. But this activity that we are to do is create a list of the barriers you see in people's thinking to regenerate agriculture. Why aren't they readily accepting of regenerative agriculture? Okay, so this is a big topic for me. I kind of noted that I went away from the ranch and it came back, so I'll admit this probably will be a little bit long-winded video, so hopefully you can hang tight to the end. But this has been something going on in my head, just agriculture, since I was 12 years old, and shown how to run the baler, going round and round, thinking how can this be done. And so again, I'm going to start with a little bit of a different story, a preamble to get this started. But it actually a big barrier. I'm going to relate this to a story that I came across quite a while ago, but I think it's really fitting. The story of how the Romans lost the invention of flexible glass. Okay, you're gonna find out how this is related. But the man who invented flexible glass, he was granted an audience with the Roman Empire, Tiberius. Okay, to show him his work. After Tiberius examined the glass cup, he handed it back to the glassmaker, who proceeded to throw it onto the ground with all his might. The emperor was shocked at what happened. He picked it up, and the cup just had a small dent in it. The glassmaker took that little hammer and beat the glass, and in no time the cup regained its original shape. Now that Roman glassmaker, he was confident that he had impressed the emperor, and was probably waiting to be rewarded for his ingenious creation. When the emperor asked if anybody else knew how to make this kind of flexible glass, the craftsman answered no. Instead of receiving the reward that he had hoped for, the glassmaker was executed, thus taking the secret of making flexible glass with him to the grave. Now, why was this so? Now, after going through some of this story, some of the people say that the emperor did this because he was worried that the creation would lower the value of gold. Others say he was motivated to protect the livelihoods of other glassmakers. What do you guys think? But others have noted that the inventor was killed to maintain the emperor's power by withholding knowledge to the masses. Now, anyways, this serves to me as a tale about the complex interplay between innovation, power, fear, and the preservation of established norms. So now, how does this relate to the barriers to regenerative agriculture? We might see some of my audience here with their opinions. But going back to the agriculture, and you have to look at it as a system. Okay, now as a system, as I told you before, I'm a mechanical engineer, so systems are important, and it's quite a complex system that we're in here in agriculture. Now Dana, she had made a relation to a hockey coach, us being the leaders, coaches, and the game we're playing in regenerative agriculture as a hockey game. But I think it's a lot more complicated than that, and I'm going to get into that. The difference between hockey, everyone knows the rules, and everyone's goal is the same, to get the puck into the net. But I think we must acknowledge that farming, there are many players in this game, and we all may not have the same goal. So I'm going to put my engineer hat on here and talk about the system of the science of systems. Okay, now there are two different kinds of systems. I'm going to a dumb system has 5 parts, an intelligent system has 9 parts, but I'm going to simplify this down to the dumb system just to keep it simple. You have an input, right, and an output, and in that center area you have this system, and it's made up of 3 parts. Okay, so there's transport, movement, conversion, and storage, so structure. So that's the 5 parts. Okay, so you have something coming in, There's a conversion process, usually motion to move it through, and some structure to keep things together before you get your output. So in our regenerative system, I'm going to call this, again, I'm looking at we're trying to convert this grass behind me to a saleable product. Okay, so that's the input we're dealing with, and that's the conversion process. It's often talked about in regenerative agriculture. Now, to move that product through, we're in a capitalist society where the money drives the flow, right? So that's the transport side of this equation, the financial side, the marketing side, to move that product through. And then, the final product is, in my case, grass-fed beef or beef. Okay, and then the storage side of this equation is some infrastructure. You need infrastructure to move that product, right? The dollar just doesn't do it. You need trucks, you need processing facilities, okay? And logistics to move it. So those are the three areas of a system, okay? Now, often we as farmers, and I noted this at one point, we work with our strength, and it is on the land. It's less in the area of the people side, where often sales occurs, right? And it's not as often all into the office, where the dollars and cents adds up. I think I gave that story last. I worked for a company, 3 owners, Larry, Barry, and Gary. One was the mechanic and engineer, one was the accountant, and one was the salesman. So again, 3 sides of this, even like the system that I talked about: conversion, transport, and storage. Now, the barrier here, in my opinion, is on that transport and the storage side. So the infrastructure and the market access, okay? And there was a question that was asked about why people don't see the need to change. And this quote often comes to mind, that it's difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it. Okay, that's an Upton Sinclair quote. But it's easy to have barriers hidden, okay, by some of these players that don't have a vested interest for it to proceed through. And I know there is a RBC report that was put out in 2023 that highlights this. I will talk about it a later time, but it just to be brief, it talks about the problem of farmers aging out, and we need to get the next generation in, and they talk about how to build the next green revolution. Well, in my opinion, regenerative agriculture is the next green revolution, that it should be front and center. But again, this is coming from a bank. RBC policy lead wrote this, and they identified the 3 areas to solve this are increase immigration, okay, significantly, to get more people into Canada, to 30,000 over the next decade. Promote agriculture education in universities, which isn't a bad thing if it's regeneratively focused. And the last would accelerate the adoption of autonomous and mechanized solutions of farms. Again, if you look at things as a system, they identified a problem, but again, the solution is probably within their wheelhouse. So that system, okay, the 3 parts, I think a shift to focus on the transport and storage side, so the market access, the financial incentives, and pooling some resources for the infrastructure to get that product to market. In my opinion, that's the biggest barrier. It needs to be talked about a little bit more in these circles, and we need to put our minds together and come up with a solution. And I know I have a bit of a solution or a project I'm working on to really focus on those points of the triangle. But again, understanding the whole system. I'm going to go back to that hockey coach analogy, and we have to recognize all the players on the team may not be working towards our same goal. Okay? As coaches, we need to bench those players. Okay? They need to be replaced with team members that are willing to support the mission. Okay? And we need to do the work. Okay? And I like to wrap this up with a little bit of a quote Again, my colleagues here are probably thinking you're getting a little long-winded, but I'll just finish this up with a JFK quote. I'm just going to paraphrase here about these barriers and how we can solve them, in my opinion. Okay, our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by man. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly unsolvable, and I believe we can do it again. So there it is. That's my answer to how to solve the barriers to regenerative agriculture. It's looking at the system as a whole and possibly putting some resources in areas that we may find to be a bit uncomfortable, but necessary to free up our product to move through the supply chain. So that's all I have to say today. Hopefully my audience didn't distract everyone too much, but I'll check in as we go along this journey together. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.